research and discovery. Futuris.
There's no better place to think about the challenging future for our oceans than 15 meters below. That's at least what we thought during the first dive on our quest for some mysterious bubbles of carbon dioxide. It all started in a mythological, eerie island north of Sicily. We woke up very early that morning. And soon we were on the fast track, looking for small, underwater volcanoes.
We're studying the effects of carbon dioxide on the seas. As we're burning carbon dioxide and putting it into the atmosphere, it's increasing the amount of CO2 in the seawater. It's very difficult to see what effect this has on the whole ecology of the sea, unless you go to places that have got naturally high levels of carbon dioxide. Now, luckily, Europe's got some really good examples of volcanoes that emit carbon dioxide into the seawater, changing the acidity of the ocean, and as it does so, it affects entire communities of organisms at the same time. So that's why we're diving in these places. You see how yellow the rocks are? It's quite likely to be sulfurous.
Marine biologist Jason Hall-Spencer was the coordinator of our expedition, partially linked to a European Union research project called EPOCA. It was slow, patient research. From time to time, Jason shared some stories on marine biology with us that he's fascinated about.
If you ask anybody who's been fishing the sea for a long time, or you look at old photographs, what we consider to be a big fish now is actually very small. We've been fishing them down and down and down, and the big ones are not left. It used to be in the Mediterranean that you could sit on a headland like this and see the running of tuna past the headlands, and you could go out in boats, row out, and be able to catch them. And whole communities would grow up on this kind of fishing because you could rely on this happening every season. Now it just doesn't happen anymore. So for me, that's been one of the major effects that humans have had in the seas that's obvious.
Age-old chants encourage the fishermen. Traditional methods have changed little over the centuries here along the coast of Senegal. Fishermen are after the sardinella fish, closely related to the herring. They're considered a local delicacy. Today's catch isn't great. Once again, there are few fish and many are too small.
When we were young, we saw lots of different kinds of herring, which these days we don't see anymore. 4-meter fish, we called them. They were so big.
Overfishing along the Senegalese coast, both by local fishermen and big foreign factory ships, is driving the sardinellas to the brink of extinction. These scientists want to stop that happening. Every day they come down to the port to collect specimens for further analysis. In the lab, the fish are weighed and measured, and their internal organs are studied. The sex of the fish can then be established.
286 grams.
Scientists want to know if these fish were mature enough to have laid eggs at least once before being caught. It's by measuring these small calcified structures taken from the head that they can estimate the age of the fish, and they see worrying trends.
If we look at the fish from 10 to 15 years ago and compare them with today, we can see that the size of the fish being caught is smaller. It means we must reassess current fishing methods.
It's from this institute in northern Germany that a European Union research project on overfishing in Senegal and in another 20 countries worldwide has been coordinated by scientist Rainer Frosser.
The aim is to get the fishermen to leave the fish in the sea until they get to an optimum size, which is approximately half, even 2/3 of their final size. If one then catches them, it's less effort for the fishermen. This responsible fishing prevents disruptions in fish populations. We've published a study which shows that the populations at sea could be 7 times larger if they were fished when they'd reached a reasonable size, and the fishermen would receive the same economic benefit.
Wenn wir sie denn bei der richtigen Größe fischen würden.
Some experiments on sustainable fishing and marketing are already going on. Sustainable fishing green labels at this supermarket in southern Germany guarantee that the fish was caught at a mature age and is selling at a fair price. Customer reaction has been a mix of interest, curiosity and distrust.
Bis zu einem gewissen Grad würde ich mehr bezahlen.
Up to a point, I'm prepared to pay more. But fish is already expensive and relatively rare. Prices should be kept in proportion.
Ohnehin schon teuer, ja, weil wenig und weil rar. Und insofern, ja, man muss aufpassen, dass man es nicht überzieht.
For me, it doesn't matter if these sustainable fish are more or less expensive. What really matters is that they're of good quality and fresh.
Per me quello che conta è questo qua, deve essere fresco.
Back in Senegal, fishermen think overfishing must stop or it will kill their future.
To kill small fish isn't good. When we catch the small ones, we know there's nothing left in the ocean.
Our quest for carbon dioxide bubbles was proving a difficult task.
This place is peculiar because there's some warm water coming out because of the volcano, and in the entrance to some caves there's some fine curtains of carbon dioxide bubbles rising to the surface. But really, seawater is a fantastic buffer for the effects of carbon dioxide. So just a few bubbles don't make much difference to the surrounding area. You need quite a lot of CO2 in a localized area to make a big difference. So unfortunately, this site isn't perfect for what we're looking at. It's interesting, beautiful, but it's not what we need. So we need to go to another site to see what's there.
It was time for another story on marine biology.
Deep sea corals are especially sensitive to human impacts because they've evolved and live in environments that are very stable. If humans then change those conditions radically in some way, then it makes these reefs at risk. Now, the most obvious one is if you fish these reefs with equipment that's heavy that drags across the seabed, because that basically acts like a bulldozer. Within one trawl, within an hour, you can destroy a habitat that's thousands of years old.
The Pelagia was on time that grey summer morning after a 2-week research cruise off the British coast. On board are 15 biologists from 6 different European countries, all experts in deep-water corals. Scientists performed several analyses to understand how different these deep-water corals are from their better-known cousins, tropical corals.
Die tropischen Korallen, die haben Algen in ihrem Gewebe und die Algen.
Tropical corals have algae in their tissue, and they perform photosynthesis, turning light into energy and feeding the coral. Here in the Atlantic, there is no light in the depths, so we're wondering if there's something that can replace the algae's symbiotic relationship. Our first reaction is it could be bacteria in the tissue, feeding off nutrients in the water.
The film, the images are transmitted through a wire directly to the ship, so we can see.
The research vessel's sophisticated equipment allows onboard scientists to study corals in real time. Lasers and video cameras help draw up these maps of underwater currents that explain how corals can eat, grow and colonize new areas so they can be better preserved.
Here you see by periods of 2 hours you see the currents changing in direction and magnitude, and what we hope to find is, hope to see is by this is some relationship in a very rough sense between the current regimes on top of the mount and that along the mount, because that is decisive for the way food can be transported to the corals that grow on top.
We might have to transfer them into
Living corals are very sensitive to light and temperature changes, so they have to get to the labs quickly and carefully. Scientists focus their research on different patterns, including breathing and feeding. Murray Roberts has been studying deep-water corals since 1997. Back then, their feeding patterns were a mystery. Now, a clearer picture is emerging.
It seems, from new work, able to feed on quite a mixed diet. So they can take animal remains, they can take some live animal, some plant remains as well, and they have a kind of omnivorous diet, some of these animals. And it's possible they can absorb organic material from the water as well. So they're able to grow in areas of good high productivity, but also where that material is taken down to the reef sufficiently by the local currents.
The skipper can probably
Local divers and fishermen gave us tips for our second diving location. Again, we were unlucky.
We're in normal pH conditions here, and you can see it, I hope, that there's abundance of calcified life here. There's all sorts of coralline algae, there's sea urchins, there's limpets and mussels, sorts of things that you would expect to find in unpolluted conditions throughout the Mediterranean. People are clearly distressed when large amounts of cetaceans, dolphins and whales land on the beaches. And sometimes the reasons for that are unknown. But one of the main concerns is that the deafening noise of construction or surveys for seismic surveys or military surveys actually damages the hearing and confuses the brains of these highly sensitive organisms and causes them to get lost and to become stranded.
Here at the Barcelona Aquarium, marine life is well protected behind the thick glass of their tanks. But in the open seas, animals can't escape from ever-mounting human intervention into their lives.
We have to understand that some of the marine organisms who have been living in this environment for millions of years have adapted to it. They've developed through the information they receive through sound underwater. In particular, sea mammals who use sound for all their activities. If man-made noise contaminates the areas the mammals live in, preventing them from correctly receiving the information, it'll put all of their lives in danger.
For whales and dolphins, sound is the primary means of learning about their immediate environment. Loud man-made noises such as industrial and military sonars, experimental acoustic devices and maritime transport like propeller noise can traumatize and incapacitate them.
I think we can compare the process to human vision. If our vision is limited, we're incapable of living without assistance. For those animals, daily activities become difficult with reduced capacity to capture prey and orientate themselves through sound. Their life becomes impossible.
Scientists at the LIDO European Union research project use giant hydrophones submerged in deep waters to assess the negative effect of noise pollution. This method is more environmentally friendly than using ordinary listening devices aboard ships and allows a continuous access to data. All sound data is then processed at this acoustic lab in Barcelona.
We first filter the data to see if there are interesting acoustic events. So this can be whistles or this can be sonar signals from cetaceans. After the detection stage, we try to classify it. And after that, we transmit the data to the general public. Everyone can download the analysis results and we show it in a client.
While we were pursuing our quest for carbon dioxide bubbles, our colleagues were measuring acidification of the water and marine biodiversity along the coasts of the island.
Volcanoes represent an ideal natural laboratory. Here we have different measuring stations, some hundreds of meters away from each other. This assessment helps us to somehow forecast how marine ecosystems could evolve.
Most people think that the deep sea is a boring expanse of mud that goes on for thousands of kilometers with nothing interesting there. But nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, the deep sea is punctuated by all of this geological activity that makes it an exciting place to be studying the biology of the seabed. If you look in the shallow waters here, lots of people have studied and surveyed and know about these systems. But the deeper you go, the less known it is and the more full of surprises it is. We think there's something like 50,000 giant volcanoes in the sea. These are volcanoes over a kilometre high that have never been studied by anybody.
An unusual stormy morning in Crete welcomes the Meteor, a German research vessel back from 3 intensive research weeks in the Mediterranean Sea. On board are around 30 European scientists, including Italian geophysicist Silvia Ceramicola. Silvia's best friend on board has been this underwater vehicle, able to reach depths of 4,000 meters. For 3 weeks, all sorts of marine species have posed in front of its 7 digital cameras. But for Sylvia, the most precious footage was this bare deserted seafloor, filmed at around 1,700 meters deep, the hills of a mud volcano. Unlike hot magmatic volcanoes, mud volcanoes are mainly formed by the release of cold gases. It's only recently that European scientists have started to understand them better, with multi-beam sonars and sedimentary rocks sampled from the seafloor.
Our volcanoes are on the surface of an underwater basin. This basin has several kilometers of sediment over the basement rocks. If we're able to understand at what depth this rock was laying before being thrown out by the volcano, we'll be able to understand how deep the roots of that volcano are. And this is very important for us. Another important thing is trying to understand if this venting of sedimentary material has been cyclical, or if it was only one event, or how many there have been on a regular basis.
A year before, Sylvia and her team discovered these two volcanoes off the southern Italian coast. They've now established a more precise morphological map of the surrounding area.
Our dive showed that right now this volcano is not active, but we've seen all sorts of traces of volcanic activity. We've seen these huge blocks of muddy rocks. We've seen white sediments, very thin, that look like snow and that cover all the volcanic cone. These sediments could come from the eruption of a nearby cone that were deposited there, or could have been extruded from the now inactive volcano many years ago during a past eruption.
Gas emissions, lack of light, enormous pressures. Underwater mud volcanoes' environments are challenging for life. Yet some microorganisms have succeeded in adapting to these extreme conditions. 99% of those microorganisms are still unknown to science. Their role is crucial to marine ecosystems, says German microbiologist Antje Boetjes.
At the bottom of the seafloor, when there are mud volcanoes around, you often see patchy distribution of black spots. We recognize usually these white nets around the black patches. What you see here in white are giant-sized oxidizing bacteria that become so large that you can see them with the naked eye. They are in fact quite relevant in consuming the hydrogen sulfide. They prevent this gas from spreading around the sea and ocean waters.
It was mid-afternoon when we finally found what we were looking for.
Let's try it around these different bits of the boat. It's amazing, the whole seabed is bubbling with gas. It's carbon dioxide coming up. It looks like champagne bubbling right in front of your eyes. It looks very beautiful, actually. But you have to look very, very hard to see what's going on. And you actually see no life that's made of calcium carbonate. It just doesn't exist there. And even the organisms that would normally have shells, they're living naked without shells. It's a fascinating glimpse of what it looks like when you put a lot of carbon dioxide into the sea. Humans are not going to kill all life in the seas. It's not within our power to do so. So I am optimistic in the very long run that no matter what we do and how badly we treat the seas, some things will survive. And in geological time, after we've gone, there will be life in the sea and it will come back in a different way to it now. What I am not optimistic about, though, is the immediate future. That means my daughter's future and her children and how they'll experience the sea, because it will be different to my own experiences where I've been able to see pristine coral reefs or go to the deep sea that is unimpacted. everybody has that innate love of what they see when they look in a rock pool. You can't help children laughing and giggling as they go looking for crabs. And that's what gives me the most hope, because it's almost irrepressible, this relationship we have with the sea and things that live in it.